This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Now, it's safe to assume that the Cleveland Browns have reached your expectations if you're a Browns fan, especially given the fact that they've had injuries throughout the year. But the measure of a team isn't what they can overcome through injuries, but how they can achieve expectations despite injuries. And this Cleveland Browns team is a remarkable demonstration of a team not only reaching expectations despite adversity, but exceeding expectations despite adversity. Well, what do I mean by that? At the beginning of the season, I did something that I thought would be a very fun exercise. I wanted to put my expectations for the Cleveland Browns on paper. I want to put them down somewhere where they're tangible. Instead of saying, I think David Njoku is going to have a good year, I put a number on that. I put yards and touchdowns on that number so we can say, hey, I think David Njoku is going to have this many yards, this many touchdowns. I think this player is going to do this. This is what I expect from this player. Instead of it being some kind of vague notion of an expectation, I wanted it to be something that we can go back to and either hold somebody accountable to or give them praise when they exceed it, because sometimes expectations tend to be liquid. A player can exceed expectations early on in the season, regress a little bit, and then come back to playing well, and then people will feel like that player has not exceeded expectations, despite the fact that what that player achieved during that season was far greater than anybody expected that player to achieve during that season. So we're going to start with a conversation with receiving yards, and we're going to go through all the expectation stats that I put out there at the beginning of the season and compare them to where the Browns are at now with one game to go, but one game where they're probably not going to play that many starters, and see how they stack up to those expectations. We're going to start by looking at receiving yards. Now, there were 5 players in this category who reached expectations, 2 who greatly exceeded expectations. Jerome Ford, the expectation for him when it came to receiving yards this year was to get about 250 yards and a touchdown. Jerome Ford will end the season at this point with 293 yards and 5 receiving touchdowns, which, hey, tell me if you had that one on the board. Jerome Ford, 5 receiving touchdowns this year. I believe that puts him second on the team when it comes to receiving touchdowns. And Kareem Hunt has like 8, which he wasn't even on the team when we made this first set of expectations. So he won't be making an appearance on this list. So Jerome Ford not only exceeded his expectations, he exceeded Nick Chubb's expectation. And I'm pretty sure that there's a world where you can add, he exceeded Nick Chubb's expectations. So good year for Jerome Ford when it comes to receiving the football as well there. 5 receiving touchdowns for Jerome Ford. It's one of the most unspoken about facts of the year. Cedric Tillman, I thought he would come into the year getting anywhere between 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 600 yards, 6 touchdowns. He was the largest range of any young player I had for the Cleveland Browns, and he ended up on the low end of that, 181 yards, no touchdowns. So I'm pretty sure he'll get the extra 7 yards against Cincinnati. If he does that, and if he gets a pair of touchdowns, he'll be well within expectations. But right now, you could say Cedric Tillman for year 1 has met some semblance of expectation, given what other receivers who are taken around his spot tend to do their first year. Now, David Njoku has skyrocketed past his expectations. We thought the best he could do this year, 700 yards, 7 touchdowns. Right now, he's at 882 yards and 6 touchdowns. So fair to say that David Njoku has exceeded your expectations of him. Jordan Atkins has been under expectation. You thought that he would be, a 300 to 600 yard guy. He's only gotten 100 yards total this season. Maybe he has a big game versus Cincinnati to get there, but at this point, it's kind of moot. Donovan Peoples-Jones, probably one of the biggest disappointments of the year. I believe he's only had 100 yards total this season. Let me get back to him and see what he has this year. Yeah, this year with two teams, he has only about 128 yards. So it's been a very disappointing season for Donovan Peoples-Jones. Hopefully he could bounce back in Detroit. Was traded halfway through the season. Elijah Moore is somebody who was on track to disappoint almost all year, but made a really strong push in the second half of the season to get back on expectation. And he did get back on expectation. 640 yards, 2 touchdowns, which puts him within the range of the base expectation for Elijah Moore. So a bit on the lower end for him, but still well within expectation. And then Amari Cooper, who did not have an exceptional year with touchdowns, but did have an exceptional year with receiving yards, had 1250 exactly. And you can see here, I thought Amari Cooper's high for this year will be 1250 and 11 touchdowns. Now, he didn't get the 11 touchdowns, but touchdowns were weird this year. You got 8 from Kareem Hunt. You got 5 from Jerome Ford. They just kind of happened randomly, but the production was still there for Amari Cooper. So when it comes to the receiving group, I would say it's better than you expect, right? When you're talking about 4 different quarterbacks being out during the course of the year, right? And the Browns having to kind of figure out that position as they go on with Deshaun Watson in and out, with a bunch of guys in and out this season. You would think that those numbers would be a little bit worse than what they are, but they've been able to find a way to have the most important contributors contribute at a high level. Let's look at now some of the defensive expectations. Team defense. You're going to see a lot of these green check marks when I put up these graphics for team defense, because quite frankly, they exceeded almost every expectation expected of them this year. Team defense, passes defended. They were at 85 was the expectation for this defense. The Browns defense this year, I believe they got to 87 passes defended so far with some games to go, which is just really good. Yeah, 87 passes defended with games to go. QBR, I believe they're at 72 QBR, so they've held teams like minus 13 of what was expected of them. Score percentage, I believe they're at 22%. We expected them to hold teams to about 36% in score percentage, so they're doing a lot better there. The secondary has played well above expectations this year. Let's look at some of the pass rushing expectations that we have for this team, and we'll see a similar story here. The only area in which this part of the team kind of disappointed is with the Miles and Za'Darius sack numbers. You did not get as much contribution from those two guys this year as you would have hoped. I believe Miles had 14. Za'Darius has 5.5 as of recording this video. So you're talking about 19.5 between the two of them, which isn't what you hoped. You hope Miles will get a little bit more. You hope Za'Darius will get a little bit more. You will get 30 between the both of them, but that really hasn't affected the team sack number, because the team sack number was set at 44. And again, the Browns have a whole nother game to go, so this can change, but the team sack number was set at 44. The Browns are currently at 46 sacks as a team. So not only are they plus 12 from where they were last year, they're plus 2 above expectations already, still with the game to go. Pressures, the Browns have been killing it in this department. They were expected to get 134. I believe the Cleveland Browns are at 133. So you assume they get a pressure in this Cincinnati game, and they'll be at 134, probably end up well above it. Pressure percentage, they were expected to be at 22. They were at 23% this year, so even better than expectations. First downs, you expected them to only give up 313 first downs, which would have been an improvement of 16 from last year. This year, the Browns have given up, let me pull it up so I have the right number, perfect right number, 232. So, I mean, like, yeah. Yeah, they will maintain that number through Sunday. And that will be a massive improvement. Yards per game has been an improvement. Run yards per carry has been an improvement. And rushing touchdowns has been an improvement as well. As long as they don't give up more than 2 rushing touchdowns against Cincinnati, they should be improved there, or at least meet expectations in that category. We all knew the defense was playing well. We all knew the defense has been playing at an elite level, but these kind of numbers really put into perspective just how much better we thought this Browns defense, how much better this Browns defense is, not just the last year, but from where we thought they would be, right? Because we thought it would take a significant leap for the Browns to even hit these numbers. And now, not only are they hitting these numbers, in a lot of cases, the Cleveland Browns defense is blowing these numbers straight up out the water. All right, let's go to some more Browns defense team expectations. Takeaways. We thought the Browns would be at 23, which would be a +3 improvement from last year. The Browns are currently at 27 takeaways, so they blew that number out the water. When it comes to TFLs, we thought the Browns would make a +12 improvement on TFLs. It was a pretty stark improvement. You're talking about almost a player season's worth of tackles for loss you're adding right there. I mean, Myles Garrett has 17 this year, so you're talking about adding 12 is pretty impressive. You would take an impressive season. So just to get that 12 improvement would be hard. The Browns have 102 tackles for losses this year. Yes. We thought 12 would be very hard to come by. 102 tackles for loss they're at, right? We thought the +12 of that, they're at +20, over +20, +22 of what we expected them to get at, which was already a leap. I mean, just incredible stuff there. Quarterback hits, they're at 104. We expect them to be at 100, which again, that would have been a massive jump, going up +34 quarterback hits. For example, that's adding more than a whole Myles Garrett of quarterback hits in a season, right? Myles Garrett gets 30 quarterback hits. Got 30 quarterback hits this season. We were thinking the Browns are going to add 34 quarterback hits. So between all of the new additions, you would have to find a whole Myles Garrett's worth of production. Already have done it, and now you're over that number and can only add to it. Interceptions, wanted the Browns to get +3. Again, +3 is a whole nother player's worth of interceptions. The Browns are at 17, so they exceeded that number. Red zone attempts, they've exceeded. Red zone touchdowns, they've exceeded. Starting drive, they've exceeded. They've exceeded literally every expectation we put out there. And some of these expectations, the increases were a little bit more modest than the others, but they just blew out the water every expectation that they had there. And this tells you how special of a group that this Cleveland Browns team has been this year. Because not just on the defensive side of the ball, but also on the offensive side of the ball, they have had individual players, position groups that have just exceeded expectations in a season where it would be very excusable if you did dip below expectations because you had a historic number of injuries. But this team did not quit. They did not accept being okay for an answer. They strived for greatness and achieved it. And that's just spectacular. But that's my thoughts on that. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Are you as impressed with how well and how much over expectation this Browns team has been this year as I am? Let me know in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.